Chiefs news, analysis, and opinion every day. We are here watching the waiver wire for the Kansas City Chiefs. Cut down day was yesterday, and now the teams in the NFL get the opportunity to claim players who are still on their rookie contracts but have been released. And guys, there are 14 names I want to go over. It is highly unlikely that the Kansas City Chiefs can land any of these names, but I think that there's a chance that one or two of them fall this far, and I will talk about why I want the Chiefs to have them and how they could get to the roster. So to claim a player off of the waiver wires, you then have to put them on your 53-man roster, which means you would have to then let go of someone who did make your team. So possibly the most nonsensical name on this list is the first name on this list, Jelani Woods. That is the tight end out of Virginia in the 2022 draft. Now, that RAS score might seem a little bit nonsensical to you if you were not familiar with them. The RAS score is a relative athletic score. It is out of 10. Jelani Woods scored 10. Now, I say this is maybe a nonsensical pick because the Chiefs have 3 tight ends on their roster. We know they want 4. They want Robert Tonyan back, and they said they would re-sign him. Plus, they have Jake Brenningstool, who is on the injured reserve right now. That is 5 players. I don't care. Jelani Woods has largely been, I won't say I guess, you should say a bust if he's been released right now, but I don't care. You're looking at someone who is 6'7", 253 pounds with 24 bench press reps on 34.5-inch arms. Is a tight end with 24 reps with 34.5-inch arms, had a 37.5-inch vertical, a 10'9" broad jump, a 4.6 140-yard dash with a 1.57 10-yard split, a 4.33 short shuttle, and a 6.95 3-cone drill. This is a player that I think if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you just roll the dice on. He has not played with a quarterback the caliber of Patrick Mahomes. No one in the league has outside of Kansas City. So maybe he has not produced to the level that you would like to see him produce. He's not caught passes from Patrick Mahomes. He's 6'7". He's got 34.5-inch arms. He runs a 4.6 140. You just take the chance. You claim him off of waivers. You figure it out later. I don't care what position you have to short sell yourself at in order to take a Jelani Woods. If he gets to the 31st spot, you take him, you figure it out, and you go from there. At running back, there are 2 running backs on this list. Audric Estime. I was a very big fan of Estime coming out of college. I said that he was the closest thing to Kareem Hunt I had seen at the college level. Now, you will see on his RAS score there, a very, very, very red right-hand column. Yeah, he's not fast, but that 4.71 is a little bit misleading. It looked way worse than that. What you're looking at here is a football player. He is a weeble. He wobbles, but he will not fall down. That is exactly what Kareem Hunt does. You're looking at a guy who is 5'11", 221 pounds. He has a 38-inch vertical and a 10'5" broad jump. Guess what? Those are the explosive numbers. That's what gets you to fall forward. The 4.7 140-yard dash is not a typo. The 1.69 10-yard split is not good. But these numbers are, look, do you want a running back to run 50 yards? Then you get a different guy. If you want a running back to fall forward and always give you positive yards, that's Audric Estime. This might be exactly what the Chiefs were looking for when they said they were trying to acquire another running back. You have in Brashard Smith and Elijah Mitchell, two speed backs. Very difficult to trust either of those guys on the field with pass blocking for Patrick Mahomes. Now, any of the running backs that you have on the field are not going to be pass blocking in the traditional sense anyway. They're going to be checking the blitzer, right? Patrick Mahomes is such a unique talent that it does the offense more good to just maximize targets so long as Mahomes can be kept upright. Add to that, no one is Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon was an absolute physical freak. Go look at his numbers. Look at his explosion numbers. Look at his bench press. He was a freak for being a running back his size. He knew how to pass block. Neither Brashard Smith nor Elijah Mitchell are that guy. Audric Estime, I wouldn't say is a great blocker, but at 5'11", 221, you've got a guy who can at least get in somebody's way. I would love to see Audric Estime on the Kansas City Chiefs for the 2025 season at that same position. Damian Martinez, the 2025 draft pick from the Seahawks, 5'11", 217 pounds with a 4.5 140-yard dash. Definitely a good enough time there. A 1.58 10-yard split, 35-inch vert, 10-foot 4-inch broad jump. Nothing stands out physically really with Damian Martinez, but he is just sort of, in my opinion, a solid overall back. Obviously not solid enough to stick on the Seahawks, but I do think that 8.19 RAS score translates to the NFL. Now, one thing you're going to notice here, 8.19 RAS. Jelani Woods a 10 RAS. Audric Estime a 6.58. I have started to come around to the fact that if you're going to be an effective running back, you either have to have an elite RAS 9.5 and above, or a bad one. Kareem Hunt did not have a fantastic RAS score. So that is how I feel about the running back position. Moving on from running back, there's one wide receiver on whom I would take a chance, and I'm going to tell you why. Malachi Corley here, 5'10", 215, 4.48 40-yard dash, 1.59 10-yard split, 4.22 short shuttle. These are all decent numbers, 7.76 overall RAS score. But let's look at that size one more time. 5'11", 215. Kind of is washed out as a wide receiver. What if you could claim Malachi Corley and train him in one of these hybrid roles to be a running back / wide receiver / slot guy, an H-back type guy in your offense? I think Malachi Corley could excel there if he is given the opportunity to excel. Don't think that's what anybody was doing in New York last year. So maybe, this was a 2024 draft pick, by the way. So maybe just a change of scenery would do Malachi Corley some good. Then, offensive tackle. One offensive tackle on this list, 2 or 3 offensive guards, I can't remember. 3 offensive guards. Carter Warren. If you were here for the mock drafts last year, you know I talked up Carter Warren a lot. I thought that a lot of Jets on this list. I thought Carter Warren had an opportunity to be a starter in the NFL. 6'5.5" 311 pounds, 35 3/8 inch arms. Not any other testing there. Going to be 100% honest with you, I have not been able to keep up with Carter Warren through the 2023 or 2024 seasons. There is a reason that the Jets cut him. Based on what I remember from college, based on all the movement that I've seen him doing, I would bring him in and just take a chance. I would. I think that there is an NFL offensive lineman inside Carter Warren. Then offensive guards. We're talking about guards because, well, the Kansas City Chiefs have an offensive guard at left guard that a lot of Chiefs fans don't particularly like. I think that Kingsley Suamataia still has the opportunity to absolutely excel at the position. Perhaps I'm wrong. But behind that, you still have a whole lot of football to be played. Layden Robinson, offensive guard out of Texas A&M, drafted in 2024. You're looking at a 6'3" offensive guard. That's the problem there. A 302-pound offensive guard. That's the problem there. It's possible he is bigger than that now as far as weight is concerned. Unlikely that he grew taller. But you're looking at a guy with a 5'09", 40-yard dash, a 1.78 10-yard split, 9'3" broad jump. Those are all good numbers. Moderate to okay numbers for the rest of his testing. I think you just take a chance on a guy like this. I think that he has. I think that he has the athletic profile that if you're looking at the bottom of your roster, it is worth having a Layden Robinson around. Maybe he's not an offensive lineman. Maybe that's why he was cut. But I think you just go ahead and you put the claim in. Odds are whoever you cut in order to sign him probably clears waivers. Maybe that you sign them to the practice squad. Maybe you sign them back in a couple weeks if Layden Robinson just turns out not to be an NFL offensive lineman. Then there is Kenyon Green, 2022 draft pick, basically 6'4", 323 pounds, 20 reps on the bench press on 34 and an eighth inch arms, 10 and 3/8 inch hands, a 5'2", 40-yard dash, a 1.76 10-yard split, a 26-inch vert, 8'6" broad jump. I think that this would just be insurance here. Kenyon Green, I think, could start. I think that he's a guy that can get meaningful reps in the NFL. So this would just be a security flyer for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you can claim him, you're claiming another fairly young offensive lineman. Then another guy that I was a big fan of coming out of college. I err towards Eastern Michigan prospects because that was one of my teams on NCAA way back when. I even won the Heisman with Daniel Holtzclaw, which is a much different story now than it was then. If you know, you know. 6'4" and 6'8", basically 6'5", 323 pounds, 27 reps on the bench press, 33 and 6/8 inch or 5/8 inch arms, 10 and 3/8 inch hands, 32-inch vertical, 9'2" broad jump, a 3-cone drill that scores 8.58, a 7.62 time. I think that City Sow has upside at offensive tackle. I said the same thing about C.J. Hansen, who is no longer a Kansas City Chief. So maybe don't listen to me, but I don't think you want City Sow at offensive tackle, but I think in the case of absolute catastrophe, he's a guy who you could put on the field and not maybe have the biggest dilemma on your hands. Then there are some defensive prospects, but here's the thing, guys. I'm just going to warn you up front. I don't think there's any defensive tackles. None of the guys I looked at. There's certainly is possible someone slipped through my radar and is out there that I just don't know about. But I think that is just the nature of the position in the NFL. That is why you see the Kansas City Chiefs going back out and getting Derek Nottie for basically the price of one Sky Moore. So I think that's exactly what you're seeing there. There is a dearth of talent at defensive tackle. Big guys who can actually do the job are very difficult to come by. But there are a couple of corners, and you know Brett Veach. Jalen Armour Davis is 6 feet tall, 197 pounds, 34.5-inch vert. That is disturbing. But a 4.39 40-yard dash, a 1.52 10-yard split. This is a guy who has similar numbers outside of the vertical to Najee Johnson. Najee Johnson had a 41 or 41.5-inch vertical, something like that. That is not what Jalen Armour Davis is giving you, but he has the same 4.39 40-yard dash. He has an elite 10-yard split at 1.52. I think he's an inch taller, I believe, than Najee Johnson. But if the tools are what made you want to have Najee Johnson, Looking at Jalen Armour Davis, you have another guy with those same types of tools. So, are you in love with having Najee Johnson on your roster, or are you just there because you've been there, right? So that is why I would maybe take a chance on Jalen Armour Johnson. And then we have Juju Brents, a guy who fits the classic Brett Veach, Steve Spagnuolo defensive back role. An RAS of 9.99. At 6'2" and 6/10", basically 6'3", playing cornerback, he has 34-inch arms. So he's 6'3", 198, with a 41.5-inch vertical and 11'6" broad jump. Both of those numbers, elite of elite. The one downside on him is that he has a 4.53 40-yard dash. That is not an elite number, but certainly it is good enough to succeed in the NFL. A 1.50 10-yard split. That is an elite number. Short shuttle, 405. Three-cone drill, 663. Both numbers over 9. The three-cone drill scores 9.76 out of 10. That is a 9.99 RAS score. I think you could see Spagnuolo and Veach take a chance on Julius Brent, keep him at the bottom of that roster, and just try to train him up to what it is that you do in Kansas City. Then we have a host of edge players. None of them are great fits, and I'm sure that there are better fits somewhere deep in that waiver wire transaction list. These were just some of the impressive names or intriguing names that I could find. Braden Swinson, a draft pick this year. 6'3.5", 255 pounds, 33 3/8-inch arms. You're looking at a guy who has really good agility scores. 4.33 short shuttle, 7.13 three-cone drill. Both of those numbers over 8. The short shuttle approaching an 8.5 out of 10. This is, however, just a pass rush guy. Apparently not even that much of a pass rush guy that he was able to make it to the regular season this year. He was not. Here he is being cut before the season ever starts. So Braden Swinson out of LSU is intriguing enough that I think you could claim him, let him rattle around at the bottom of your roster, and if after a couple weeks it's obvious there's nothing there, you just flip him out for somebody else. Isaiah Foskey. I was a big fan of Foskey coming out, if you remember that as well. 6'5". So here, the two things that were confusing about Foskey. Foskey was listed at like 6'7.5". Ended up being 6'5". Foskey had 22 reps on the bench press. That was a disappointing number. The rumor was he was going to be one of these very strong guys. So 6'5", 264, 22 reps on the bench press, 34 vert, 10'5" broad jump, 4.58 40-yard dash, 1.60 10-yard split. Those are very good numbers. Decent agility numbers, 4.41 short shuttle, 7.28 three-cone drills. This is a guy that if I were Brett Veach, I would put a claim on and just figure it out. I wouldn't care. I would just figure it out. 34-inch arms on him, 9.61 RAS score, overall RAS score. It's a guy that you're basically getting a free draft pick from. He was, a couple years ago when he came out, he was, prior to the college football season, one of the guys that you always saw going in the first round of mock drafts. It's not how it worked out. I think there is, however, still some of that potential there. And then we have just a gamble. Just 6'2", 30.5-inch arms, 247 pounds, 25 bench press reps, but He gets that 9.24 overall RAS score because he had a 39.5-inch vert, a 10-foot 3-inch broad jump, a 4.68 40-yard dash, a 1.6 10-yard split, a 4.31 short shuttle, and a 7.113 cone drill. This is a guy that is explosive and agile and fast. He's just very, 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 very undersized. At this point, what do you have to lose at that last defensive end position? And then the last guy here, Clelin Ferrell. Why not? 6'4" 3/8", 264 pounds, 34 1/8" arms, 10.5-inch hands, a 4.4 short shuttle, a 7.26 3-cone drill, 9'6" broad jump, and 25 reps on the bench press. It's not his fault that the Raiders took him so high. It's not his fault. Don't hold that against him. If this were just a prospect coming out and being cut without all of the baggage that Ferrell has, you'd bring him in and you'd kick the tires. I think you deserve, or he deserves it, and you owe it to yourself to do that. Now, how would you make room for these guys? Well, you could let go or trade the following players. Elijah Mitchell. No one expected him to make the roster anyway, at least as far as those last week or so of the preseason is concerned. Malik Herring. I think that the Chiefs have been trying to get rid of Malik Herring all offseason, and it just didn't work out because of the last couple preseason games. Mike Caliendo, Hunter Nourzad, and Wanye Morris, the offensive linemen, all towards the bottom end of that roster. If you wanted to bring in somebody with higher upside, I think that you have the flexibility to do it, because if you're bringing in one of those offensive linemen, you have one of these three names that you can move on from, but then you have the other two still, Mike Caliendo and Hunter Nourzad with center guard versatility, Wanye Morris with guard tackle versatility, and then finally Derek Noddy. I don't know how you would get rid of Derek Noddy, considering that none of these names are defensive tackles, but if you did, you would save yourself the capital gained in the Sky Moore trade. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.